Hey, everybody. I wanted to take a few minutes today and record a podcast that's about contrasting two technologies. So, in my world, a lot of times it's very difficult to see the challenges of an existing technology until it's highlighted in comparison with a new or different technology. And this comparison can be pretty useful if you understand both systems. And I feel like a lot of times I'm just saying, hey, this is the problem, right? This is the downside of this, whatever. And I guess I do that. Um, and maybe I should take a more positive slant. But anyway, this is kind of a pretty easy way to do this, so I'll go ahead and do it. And then accepting feedback on you're always complaining about how something doesn't work well. Maybe you should talk about how something else does work well. Anyway, so here we are. And I do understand that, and I just ask that you try and have a sense of humor, maybe about it, rather than view it as me calling anybody's baby ugly, right? Just comparing. With that said, so today I want to talk about many people's most common task management system. Okay, and I think the most common tool for task management and thus for information management is the to-do list. And I see lots of people that use this system to manage their actionable tasks. And so I just want to think about it a little bit and maybe highlight a couple of things that we've developed in Attention Compass that supersede what's going on with the current to-do list technology or process. So one of the things I often think about with to-do lists is items on a to-do list really have very little in common before they hit the list. So if you sit back and you think, okay, what do I have to do? Then your brain it tries to serve up everything. It fails to serve up everything, but it tries to serve up everything. And so when you're thinking about making a to-do list and your items come up, those items have very little in common other than they're on your mind right now. Okay. So we'll talk about kind of the challenge with that, but it's around context. So just keep the word context parked in the back of your mind, and we'll talk about why that's important kind of at the end. Okay, so the items that are getting on your to-do list have very little in common. The second problem with to-do lists is, and you might think this is an advantage, but I'll talk about it in a little bit. The second problem with to-do lists is that once you get them on the list, all of a sudden they all have one thing in common, which is they're all written down on the same piece of paper or on the same two pieces of paper, right? But now they're associated with each other because of their location in your world, if location makes sense, because they're all there together on that piece of paper. And so now here we have a list of things that were probably only loosely related to each other. And now we've forced a relationship for them that they're now all on the same piece of paper. Okay. And that's not a good way to connect things. It's pretty random if you stop and think about it. Well, they happen to all be on my mind at the same time. So now they're all on the same piece of paper together. Okay. Now, if we write a list for a specific, and back to context, if we write a list for a specific context, then they have this additional thing in common, which is a very powerful thing for items to have in common, and that's this notion of context. Think of a grocery list, for example, as compared to a to-do list. A grocery list is all about things that you can do. You have to-dos, right, that you need to take care of, but you can take care of all of them within the same context, that is the grocery store, right? If you put, I need a new suit on your grocery list, you're probably going to be disappointed. So as you're making that list, you automatically filter it to the context that you know of as the grocery store. But your created to-do list really is not that tightly related, certainly not in the context area. The third challenge with to-do lists is once they're all together on a piece of paper, they get actually harder to break apart because it's a challenge to pull out different ones. And so what this means is that this list is more challenging than it needs to be, right? I mean, I've seen to-do lists with everything from, one list with everything from feed the dog to someday learn French. Okay, and those things are all in very different contexts. But since they're on the piece of paper, they get difficult to break apart because we've got our piece of paper, this is our list, and mentally, we're beginning to build some sort of an idea that they're all related somehow. We know that rewriting the list is a waste of time, at least we think it is, because it's a slow process and it's ugly, it's scratched out and rewritten somewhere else. And oh, by the way, what do we use this corner and that corner? And so, and then there's a further challenge. So I have seen people typically do a rewrite of their to-do list around a central idea. And that idea is, I'm going to look at this list that not only is really sort of a random collection of things, but also appeared in a fairly random order. And so people will then take the following step, which is, okay, I'm going to rewrite these items in priority order. Okay. And thinking, okay, well, that's a step in the right direction. And I would agree that it is. But we also need to notice that priority changes pretty rapidly. It's easy for you to spend, for us to spend 30 minutes, right? Writing out the initial list and get out a clean piece of paper, write down another list that's in priority order, and then turn to our email and get an email that throws that priority out the window. Okay. So I'm trying to describe how writing down on paper makes lists, I'll say fragile, maybe that's the right word. And we explore this in greater detail within the attention compass training. So 3 problems with to-do lists. So one is items have very little in common before they hit the list. They just happen to be on your mind at the same time. 2 is once you get them on the list, they have something in common, but it's the wrong thing. What they then have in common is that they're all on the same piece of paper. And then 3rd, also once on the list, it's hard to break them back apart because we begin to mentally think of them as a group of things. And so a few minutes ago, I talked about context, right? And context is really important when we think about doing things that are on our list, doing things we need to do. It's much easier to do a thing if you're trying to do it in its best context. Okay. And I'll say, for example, if you've tried to take a phone call in a noisy environment, right? Can you do it? Sure you can. Would it be better if you could do it in a different context, such as a quiet place? Okay. Yeah. Can you have a phone call in a noisy place? People do it all the time. That's part of the reason it's a noisy place. But would it be better to do that phone call in a context that supports phone calls? Right. So that's just kind of an idea of what context is. Now, context is a fluid thing. A lot of different factors can influence the quality of your context relative to a specific task. If I have a task to cut the grass and it pops up on my list on Saturday, and I look out the door and it's raining outside, right? All of a sudden, this Saturday is not such a great context for cutting the grass. I may have to do it anyway, but that's a context. A context is what tools are around you at any given point. There are many tasks that are much better done sitting at a desk, full-size keyboard, than they are done, pardon me, on your phone. Right? And we talk about this at some length, again, in attention compass. And so be sensitive to the context that this task is best done in as you're dealing with your task list. So the good news is that technology properly used has caught up with us. So there's a very, very good reason why your to-do list is not context specific. Okay, so you may be thinking, okay, Larry, well, I'll take this one piece of paper and I'll break it out into 6 pieces of paper, and each piece of paper is about a specific context. Well, the problem there, not only are you rewriting it and rethinking about it, but now you've got 6 lists potentially to carry around, right? So there's a list of things that are doable while you're waiting to see your doctor. Okay? Well, it's a very specific context. So you're going to make a list and sitting at the doctor's office and you're going to do a list. Well, you know, how many times are you sitting at the doctor's office in a year? The things that didn't get done off that list in this one episode of sitting at the doctor's office, are they going to be done are they going to wait till the next episode of sitting at the doctor's office? So this context thing, because of its complexity, is very difficult to handle with paper. As I alluded to, technology has caught up with us. So we can easily create and manage lists that are context specific if we use the right tools to do it. And of course, I'm talking about using your computer and using it in specific ways so that you can capture the items that belong in a context. That's a thing that these items have in common, really have in common, rather than just being on the same piece of paper. And then when that context presents itself, you go to that list and you find things that are easier to do or better done within that context versus having to sort through your list of 20 things and go, nope, this is not the right context for this. It's not the right context for that, right? In order to find your thing. So technology's caught up with us. We can easily manage multiple lists in ways that don't require us to take around a stack of stuff with us everywhere we go. So attention compass, our process for managing our tasks and attention, is built to do exactly this. It's built to fluidly manage items in different contexts, and items naturally will appear on different lists at different times. Okay. And with the tool that we use, which is an adaptation of Evernote, and the 4 workflows that we build, you'll find that your information and tasks increasingly tend to present themselves to you when you're in the proper context to execute them. So just a word on to-do lists. If that's your current tool for managing your tasks and attention, then I would encourage you to take a look at some more advanced methodologies, and we're happy to do that with you at Attention Compass. You can find more information at dobusywrite.com. So we look forward to seeing you there. There's blog posts and access to videos like this one. So take a look at that, and I'll wrap it here. And again, I hope this wasn't just me bashing on things, but really highlighting some differences and some strengths that you could take advantage of fairly easily. So I hope you're having a good week. I want you to get out there and do busy right. Bye for now.